welcome to the 11th meeting on the 11th of August that starts at 11. Did you see? Yeah, okay, everyone gets that, apart from Brad. But anyway, as you know, we're here to discuss and to get your feedback as much as possible and to spark discussions. So we'll be having another one of these in 2 months' time on the 13th of October. So we've got a bit of, it's taken a lot of effort, but I've actually got a theme for today. So the theme is actually about optimisation, because and optimising your fleet, but optimising your fleet and what can be done to optimise your fleet. So we've got telematics and also some stuff from Adam about fuel consumption and optimisation. The news is we've had approval from contracts on for the state vendor as information. So there are these vendor panels, okay, that mean that local governments can use the recommended suppliers. And we are, Formbird, are a recommended supplier by both local buy, which covers Queensland, Northern Territory and Tasmania, but also the LGP, which is local government procurement, which is for New South Wales. So that's just a reminder. So what we're going to do first, Mark, have you got any platform updates you'd like to share? Is anything?
We are in trial at the moment. I think I'd already mentioned, so we've sort of gone through it a little bit. We are on trial piloting the offline, which will then go into, which is being used at the moment for water meter reading up at Bundaberg. They're just looking at that in terms of using it for asset assessment and meter reading and simultaneously, if you like. But that will then go into a broader base of function. You know, we see that, and I think that we've got overwhelming feedback from our fleet guys that that's really, really required for the daily driver check sheets as a key function of that. So that'll go into the upgrade. We've done one pass on fleet for the upgrade to what we call version 4. Which is the next release of the platform. That's still going to be a couple of months off, but early signs are that it's significant improvement, particularly in performance. You know, the loading of the primary asset, which, as you may know, is quite slow. 10, 15, 20 seconds. I think we're recording sort of 5-6 seconds, and it actually becomes visible within 2 or 3. Initially, so it's a significant performance improvement, but the offline will also add to it, and there'll be all sorts of opportunities to take points of an application offline. So I won't go into much more detail at the moment until we start sort of demonstrating and showing it, and moving the asset app over to it. We might do that next time. Maybe actually we'll show you where we're at with the fleet management app in version 4. We already have it sort of going in prototype, if you like. And it is largely sort of going, but there's probably some prettying up that'd be nice to do before we start putting in front of people. Okay, thanks, Mark, for the platform update. Now we're going to actually do Adam's section, which is the features and fixes and so on. And I assume we're going to share screen, aren't we, Adam?
We certainly are going to share screen. I just got to remember how to use computers again after a few weeks off.
Ah, you didn't even wear a tie.
Didn't wear a tie.
Oh.
I didn't get the memo, Paul. If you'd let me know, I would have popped one on for you.
Yeah, you can never be overdressed or overpaid is what my motto.
Yeah. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Does it say expense import?
It does.
Great. We're doing well then. I'm on the right track. So there's a few things I wanted to run through today that we've been developing over the last few months. The first of those is the fuel consumption and utilisation report. This was something that came out of a bit of Bundaberg and a bit of Brimbank suggestions, amongst a few others, but they were the primary ones. So just down in the reports and listings section, if I just type in fuel consumption into this one, or utilisation, or whatever keyword you like, comes up with this report here, which I'll open up for you guys. So there's 2 reports within this page here. You can see that we've got fuel consumption utilisation by allocation, and then we've also got fuel consumption by asset as well. So you can look at it at an allocation level or look at it at an asset level. You can filter by dates, and you can choose whether you want to include disposed ones. There's also a help section here, a help pop-up here, which just talks you through how the report works, and then also what's meant by all the terms in the report as well. So I'll just select whole of life. You can also use asset tags as well to filter the results of the of running the report as well. All right, so this is what the report looks like. The main sections really are around the total fuel consumed, the fuel consumption, actual economy, percentage difference. Let me just get rid of a few of these columns so it fits on my small screen a little bit better. So with these particular tables, we have column visibility, which enables the user to select which columns they would like to see. So I'm just going to get rid of a few of these just to make my life a little bit easier. So I get all the ones I want to see. I'll just get rid of those. How's that looking? That's looking a bit better. So this is really the fuel consumption fields, these ones here. And then we've got also the utilisation, which is the current hours distance, the target hours distance for the asset, and the derived target annual as well. And that all combines to give a utilisation result. The data in the dev environment here, we don't have probably enough data to demonstrate it properly here, but it's all been tested in other environments. So we've also got the, I'll just get some better data up here. So you can see the fuel consumption is the fuel consumption that is listed against the asset. So your manufacturer's fuel consumption, if you like, the expected fuel consumption. And then this is giving you the actual economy that you're actually getting based on, you know, your fuel uploads and everything else in there. And that's just giving you a percentage difference calculation. Any questions about that one at all? Have I missed anything, Paul A? All good?
That's all good.
Cool. The next one down, very similar, except it's just fuel consumption by asset. So again, I'll just stick whole of life to make it nice and simple. In here, we've also got the option to only see the assets that have the checkbox for federal fuel rebate checked on the asset itself, which was a Brimbank request. So I'll just click whole of life. Again, you can include disposed if you like, and you can also use asset tags to filter the results of running the report. Where Paul's been really working quite hard to put in a lot of disabling of buttons when the report is running, so you can't kind of click the button again and crash the application, and also showing that the report is running as well. So that's something we're trying to build in a lot more into the application. As you can see, this one's very similar in that it's fuel consumption, so it's got those same fuel consumption fields, total fuel consumed, fuel consumption, and also the actual economy as well. So it gives you that nice comparison between what the manufacturer says you're probably going to get and then what you're actually getting from the asset and its current usage. And again, you've got your help section there, which explains how the report works. Any questions? Continue on? Fantastic. Butt in at any point if you have any questions. The next one is, this was a request from Boganshire Council around a way to update the assets meter readings. And this is particularly looking at assets which maybe aren't captured by your typical, you know, fuel import process, or GEOTAB or whatever other source you might have. So under the works management menu, we've got asset meter import. And I'll just quickly run through this. As usual with our imports, we have a mapping document that I'm going to select. I'm going to click my CSV file that I want to use, which I think is that one. I've just kept this really simple in this example. And then I'll click validate data. It gives me this nice summary here, running through the registration of the asset, the current primary meter that's recorded in the application, and the primary meter that's listed in this import, the secondary meter listed in the application, and the secondary meter that I'm importing with this particular document. And you can see it pops up with a status or a warning here if something looks amiss. So in this case, there's an asset. The asset doesn't have a secondary meter already. So at this point here, you can choose whether you want to continue with the import or whether you want to go and make sure that the asset should be importing a secondary meter against it. I think this is also really powerful in that there's quite a few assets, I think, which might have a secondary motor, might have secondary fuel. So this is a really good way to be able to actually import that data into the application as well. I think a lot of that would be missed in the fuel import and in the GEOTAB potentially as well. Last step, import the data. There are validation errors in this report. Do I want to continue? I'm going to continue. And so the prime meter on the asset will now be updated. The last one that I want to look at is around, just going to discard that one. So this is one that came from Greater Shepparton Council. They were looking at ways to bulk import registration costs against assets. So again, in the works management menu, we've got our asset expense import. Now we kind of identified that we were starting to build lots of different import tools doing kind of similar stuff in that, you know, toll imports are really, well, toll expenses are expenses, registration expenses are expenses, insurance expenses are expenses, any other, you know, tire expenses, whatever else are expenses. And so we could see that we were going to get like quite a lot of different import tools, which seemed a bit unnecessarily. So what we've actually done is we're moving towards combining a few of them into the same import tool. So under this asset expense import, we've now got this this radio list, so you can select which type of import you're going to do. So whether you're going to do tolls, toll import, whether you're going to do an other expense import, or whether you're going to do a registration import, for example. The selection of this expense type drives what mapping documents are available. So you're never not going to be able to, you know, select another expense and then use a registration mapping, for example. So I'll click my registration, just demonstrate with this one. I'll click my mapping document, click CSV import file, select my file. Again, you've got a help section here to tell you with some brief instructions how it all works. I've got a header in this file here, so I need to check my ignore header box. And then I can import that against the asset. Import complete, created one, errors 0. Fantastic. And you can see it's just in this row here as a summary, and then that'll then show up on your monthly asset invoice reports and other expense reports and the history of the asset. I think that is it for that one. If there are no questions, I'll hand back to Paul / Mark.
Before you do,
yes,
tell us a little bit about the help section.
Help sections. All right, so that's a good reminder, Paul. Thank you. I almost skipped over that, didn't I? So there's a couple of different places for help. So embedded within pages, we have these little help pop-ups to provide some brief instructions about how to do something on the page. We also have our help center, which I think I've talked about before, but I'll just touch on it again. So on your admin menu, we've got a help center here. And we have a whole lot of different articles about different things. So we're up to 28 at the moment, covering many different topics.
And how do they get in there, Adam?
How do I access one?
No, how do you add them, or why do you add them?
Okay, yep, good question. So the way I've generally been approaching it over the last few months is that when someone comes to me with a request for support about, how do I do something? How do I complete some task? I obviously reply to that, but then I use that as an opportunity to create the help article for that as well. So it's quite an iterative approach at the moment. Also with any new developments, I'm creating help articles alongside that as well, so that the help section, the help stuff goes out with the development when it gets released.
Great.
Yeah. Basing it off what people ask is just essentially me prioritizing that list of help documents that need to be created. Obviously, there's many different help documents that we can create, but if people are asking the question, it probably means that that's a higher priority need than other things necessarily.
So I
So I'll
guess
just go into one of these.
yeah, going. So I guess the take home would be that ask the question, ask Adam.
Definitely. Email, use Mantis.
Yes. Does
Definitely.
anyone have a question for Adam right now?
On the spot.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, did you show the new table?
The asset table?
Yeah.
Did you want me to?
Go on, Paulie.
I think
show
you
it.
better, Paul, because I haven't prepared to show
It's
that
your
one.
new toy.
And it's your really impressive new toy. So I'll hand over the reins to that one for you.
Right. Something to share. Hold on.
Thank you, Adam.
No worries.
Now here comes Paul. Has he got rights to add to share screen and all that? Are you
Yes, he
right?
does. Yep, he should be able to.
It's definitely better that Paul demonstrates because it keeps evolving. And over the last 3 weeks or something, I had a quick look and I'm already looking at it and being like, oh, a lot's changed. I'm not sure I know how it works yet.
So there's been a need, like our standard component data table, we can set
Can you
up.
just maximize the screen there? Maximize the wind. Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Our standard data table can be set up with a set of columns that's kind of hard coded, if you like, into the template. We've had a number of requests saying, we'd like to see this in the table. And you get enough of those requests, and clearly the table's just going to grow and grow and grow. And it's kind of becomes impractical to use because it's so much data in it. So I've developed this new version of it where you can choose the data that you want to see in the table and save it in a view for yourself. So all of this data is the actual configuration saved to your account as you configure it. So this is on the system administrator menu and a couple of these reports at the minute. So you can see this is just a table, and I've chosen to scroll with this. I had some issues with sort of like responsive. So this is a scrolling table, and you can see a number of fields. And I can choose the fields, more fields that I want to see. That will be added to the table along here. And I can save this view. It's saved off to my account. When I reload it, cross fingers, all of those new columns should be available. So you can customize these columns as you like. You can customize the width. So done some work on making changes to the width, which can be saved. So you can configure the width of each of the columns that you want to play with.
Wow.
And I've enhanced the searching for numerics and for Boolean fields like true, false, where you can input like a set of dates. So if I input this date here, this will be greater than this date and less than the bottom date. So I'll choose something back in 2021. And if I want to choose something, say,
So that's a bit like a filter field
on
Excel.
Yeah, so this will be everything that falls between these two dates, and the same with numbers as well. So this primary meter greater than and less than. So I think that'll be quite helpful, and it should avoid some of the extraneous filters that we've had to put in on the standard data table to provide that sort of functionality. Clearly you can't, like I don't know if we've got one to have a look at that's got something like that. I think the daily driver report has something like that. Yeah, so these dates here control sort of what you see in the grid, but it's a field for each. So this is created date, and so if I had like a number of different dates along here, I'd have to set up a set of filters extraneous to the table for every date that I wanted to filter, which is kind of not very practical. So that that's taken quite a bit of work. This comes in two forms. So this is one form. So you can reload the default view. So it comes as a default view, and you can remove your saved view. So you can update your saved view, or when you save the view, it updates it. But when you don't want your view anymore, you can remove it. So that's the view where you can where there's one customization available, and they've got another one which does something slightly different in that you can so this is using the same component, but you'll notice that the save view is not there. However, with this view, you can create a new report based on the view that you select, and it'll save off that view into a document. And so and below here is a set of saved views. So we should be able to do something like, this is my report, and I'm going to customize it by taking off a bunch of stuff. And then save it. So when I reload that report, it should come back with the reloaded with the things I saved. And so this will allow a number of different views for, you might want to set it up as assets with secondary meters, something like that, and you would, assets with that's probably not a very good example.
Yeah, like I think I was just thinking about this as you spoke here, Paul, and I think probably a good way to describe it would be enabling you to set up different table layouts for different roles that you fulfill, maybe in your day-to-day job. So once a month you might need to do a full report on all the financials of all your assets, or all the or once a year or something like that. So you might select all the financial fields, for example, but then in another particular day or particular time, you might want to kind of see more of a list of the types of assets that you have and who they belong to and who's driving them, and want a report that says that. But with the saving of the view on the user account, that means you constantly have to be reselecting your column visibilities, whereas being able to save these as with the report name and save that selection of columns as different views of this table enables you to kind of have those selections always available for you to kind of refer back to without having to select each individual column. Is that a reasonable way to describe it?
Yep. Yep, that's good.
Okay.
The main thing I've been working on, it won't crash because I'm still working on it. The dashes are incredibly slow to load. I've known that for quite a while, but there's an awful lot of work in rejigging them. So I spent the last 3 weeks doing that. So the load time now should be a lot quicker.
Oh wow, that's much faster.
Yeah. So whereas it's taking sort of 20 seconds to load before, it'll now load sort of. This is loading 9,000 documents, which your dashes probably wouldn't get to that stage anyway, because hopefully you wouldn't have 750 services pending. So you should find that it pretty much loads instantly for smaller data sets. I've expanded out these buttons and sort of rejigged them. They kind of weren't working very well, and rejigged sort of the tables, fixed the workshop summary So this is probably a lot more useful now. Fix the grouping in the table. Active time recorders. Calendar components, rosters. Still do a bit of work on that one.
And is that just about decluttering the page, Paul? With the drop downs there?
Yeah, so I mean the page was quite long. It still is quite long, but you can hide information that you kind of might not want to see. Particularly this sort of summary report's quite long. It's probably more useful for the technician's dash, which was quite long as well. So all of these graph columns can be clicked, which will filter the table below. These buttons can be clicked, and that'll filter the table for all different things. And of course, you can filter the table by we'll go back to all requests by the columns as well. So there's a bunch of filtering that can be done. I haven't implemented the sort of dual range filtering in this one. It's a fair bit more complex to do. So I had my hands pretty full with just rejigging this. So that's kind of something I'd like to do, but probably not this round. The other bits and pieces that I was doing while Adam was away was asset loading. Implemented a tag out for the asset. So on the operator menu and on the on the daily driver and on the request repair request, there's a button that can tag this asset out. So the button on that form changes this this here, and I've also put in a bunch of little tests for sort of date things that are on the date sort of related information on the assets. It sort of appears at the top. It says, today is greater than your expired date, greater than your fuel card expired date, greater than your permit expired, etc., etc. And some pretty colours on the thing when it's tagged out.
I don't think anyone will miss that.
Good. Process for that quickly is so when you select the asset, I didn't save it before, which is why it's still tagged out. It'll go and check the asset and say all of these warnings, so the operator is aware that he could, might be completing a daily driver on something that probably shouldn't be driven. And if it's already tagged out, the tag out is not available. I'm going to try something else. It may not be tagged out. So no warnings for this one. Here's a bug. Sorry, the tag out becomes available when the defect inspection is complete and saved. And that's mainly because you don't really you don't really want to tag something out if you haven't actually inspected it. No, it's going to fail me. Nope, it's not. Okay, so I've identified that it's wrong, something's wrong, and I can tag it out. If you tag it out, you can email your direct supervisor. So that's taken from the account. And if you have a supervisor on your account, for example, this field. So my supervisor is me. You can email that supervisor, it'll send you an email, send that person, providing that there's an email address, it'll send that person an email saying this asset's been tagged out. And if we go back and check that asset, 9900.
I didn't think you had anything to show today, Paul.
I never have anything to show, mate. He's been tagged out.
I think a few people have mentioned the tagged out thing over the months, but I think this has really come out of Shepparton again. This suggestion from memory. It's been a few weeks though, so I might have forgotten.
Yeah, there was a Manus item. I think you sort of mentioned that was something that looked like could be a good thing to do. So I picked it up and ran with it. So Marie had a question about daily drivers and being, if I can just ask you at the moment, Marie, when, as I understand it, the operator might need access to the daily drivers. At the moment, the operator only has access to the daily drivers for today, and that it actually failed.
Yes, so that's correct. Yeah, because if they do a daily driver check sheet and everything passes, it's all okay. They're out on the road. They're involved in an accident. The first thing the police ask for is show us your daily driver check sheet.
Yeah.
And if they can't go back and review the one that they've just created that day, then it creates a problem.
Okay, so if we were to allow, if we were to put all of the daily driver check sheets in that table, would that table be filtered for the ones that they created or anybody created? Because there might be a daily driver created in the morning for that vehicle, and then somebody else jumps in it and drives.
Well, you would only want the check sheets that were created that day.
Yes, but by who?
By whoever. It's allocated for that vehicle, not by that person.
Yeah, okay. I'll make those changes.
Thank you.
Good, that's all I got.
Great. Thanks, Paul.
That's really good.
Is that good, Marie?
I like that. Yeah, we've actually just implemented a tag out system. But then I like that one better. Yeah, it's good.
Anyone else with comments on the tagging or anything else?
No? Okay. Well, thank you, Paul. We'll go back to the standard. And if you stop sharing, Paul, Mark's going to talk about business telematics and hopefully spark a discussion. So
ask when that daily driver check sheet's going to come through. The tag out system's going to come through.
Next release. I'm hoping into maybe 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
guys.
Mark,
So, guys, this is this is not really a sort of presentation per se. It's more of a discussion. It's to, I suppose, give you an update where we're at and some of our thoughts around, the GPS, AVL, telematics, whatever you want to call it, vehicle tracking integrations. So it really is not sort of, and I'm happy to sort of talk through some of the stuff and what we're learning, but some of you actually out there have probably had a lot more experience as well. So I'm also, that's kind of part of where this discussion's about. It's actually about trying to get you guys to start talking about this subject and where you guys see it going and what you want to see where we should be heading more with it. So we've sort of been talking a little bit about, you know, our kind of decision to choose or to focus a lot of our attention on GEOTAB because of primarily the vehicle asset information that we can extract from it in the ODB2 and J1939 and all the rest of it, and actually use that particularly for the ODO reading, for the very simple one reading of the ODO reading to really help with the service scheduling. Obviously, as a environment, as a platform, there's a lot more that we can leverage off that. And that'll include, you know, things around, say, driver safety, simple identification of location of asset and normal GPS, you know, just tracking and identification of movement of vehicles, utilization, where we can actually pull, where you can actually get utilization and also, I suppose, vehicle behavior, normal sort of vehicle, and that relates to safety, whether it be overspeeding, excess idle, fuel consumptions, all the rest of it that can come out of the GEOTAB platform itself. So I think I've already mentioned in the past that we don't want to duplicate what someone like GEOTAB's providing as a front end, but we want to be able to leverage it and incorporate that into the fleet management side. And that may include things like processes that we're, you know, wanting to move into, things like the pool car management, just straight up management of the asset, things like just straight up, you know, on a work order showing the location of the vehicle. You know, some of those ideas, we just want to know what really can potentially make a difference in your business. So at the moment, just where are we at? We're at the moment where we can talk to the environment, no problem. There's a lot of data there. As I said, we don't want to be pulling every bit of data out of GEOTAB and reprocessing it. So we're going to be selective on what we're doing. You know, there's no intent to try and duplicate what they're doing and sort of having a divide. We're pulling the daily ODO readings to then process, and that's kind of part of our hierarchy of service scheduling. And we'd put the GEOTAB ODO readings as number one in order to process that. So we've got a daily event that pulls the ODO reading, and then that can run the service scheduling. We also have the vehicle location into our kind of asset display, which is, you know, putting it on a map. So for the sort of water guys and the councils who are using our kind of asset mapping, they can integrate the vehicle location with their asset data, and therefore, you know, present, here is a job, here's the vehicle that's supposed to be doing the job, here's all the assets, and sort of try and wrap it all together and to sort of, you know, help the dispatcher, help the person, you know, doing the job and all the rest of it, sort of, or managing the job. So and integrate it. So a lot of it, we see that we want to leverage this data and then turn it into decision making. Like anything else, it's trying to help business processes where having them in two separate systems or disparate actually makes it complex. You know, you don't want to have to go, oh, you know, I'm working on this work order. Well, that vehicle is XYZ. I'll go and have a look where it is. Oh, what's the correlation between whatever, and becomes either spatially or visually very difficult to manage. Other sort of opportunities, you know, we sort of would like to work towards would be the sort of auto engagement, if you like, or minimize the or make it smoother in terms of creating the asset register, you know, so that you plug in the device, it will report to us things like the VIN number and some basic model details and what have you. So we could use that to identify whether it's already created in our environment, and then either semi-auto create or sort of a hybrid auto manual authentic, you know, approval process, so that simply by plugging in the device, you have the asset within Formbird. So, you know, I don't know whether you want to, you know, some of you guys, like I know Brad's a current user, in fact, of GEOTAB, and it could be an opportunity for him to, you know, talk through what he sees in that, because he's, I suppose, spent a lot more time in the environment and can probably talk through his utilization and kind of, apart from the sort of cutesy plug it in, seeing vehicles move around, where the business benefits are coming from. There are other things. There are other financial, things like optimizing your fuel tax credits. We can use this data to look at that for your, obviously your heavy plant and what have you, looking at the off-road percentage versus on-road percentage and fuel consumption over that. So there's the opportunity of the fuel tax credits and because GEOTAB, has a very accurate profile of the behaviour of the vehicle that really can simplify that process. Other opportunities, which really goes into, say, the pool car management, is things like the keyless entry and using the integrated keyless entry that GEOTAB have. It's fairly new to GEOTAB, and we certainly don't have a device yet, and we haven't really explored it. We've had a session with a couple of you guys. We're looking at the pool car management and using key cabinets as opposed to keyless entry into vehicles. So that's kind of on the radar. So that pool car is a combination of key management, keyless entry, scheduling. So really taking our current internal hire and I suppose increasing its capacity to include calendar management and block out times and all sorts of things around sort of what would represent a pool car. Now, I don't know whether I'll sort of break for a few seconds and maybe put it out to the floor on what people perhaps want to look at and or understand or maybe Brad, you can chime in if you're still there. I can't see on.
Yep, he's there.
Still there. He's there. Brad's still there. Okay. So Brad, you're probably a good person to chime in and just talk about either your experience and or what you'd like to see and what you see as some of the opportunities. And then please, anyone else who's given this some serious thought would be more than welcome to look at it.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. We've been using it now for 14 months or more. I've only got a small fleet. I've got 145 assets realistically that need to be monitored. Some of those are light trailers which we don't monitor. We've got about 86 of them now, I think, wired up to GEOTAB. We have a unique thing with our light vehicles where we change them over at 15,000 kilometres. So when we looked at putting a GPS situation in them, we had to look at something that was going to be very quick. So the ABD2 plug-in for those, we run a Toyota fleet. Thankfully, GEOTAB's done quite a lot of work there with working with the ABD2 data that comes out of the Toyota. So we have very little warranty issues, obviously, with 15,000 kilometre changeovers. But as far as being able to know where vehicles are and whatever else, and if someone's hit something and punched a radiator, for instance, we've had alerts come on different things for that sort of stuff as well. I guess the biggest thing with any of this is having a really good idea of what you want to try and get out of the system when you're starting to fit them up. We've got all of our heavy equipment's obviously got them in it. We had a bit of a think about what we wanted to be able to extract out of the data because a lot of those systems some of them are plugged into the ABD2, but they don't give us some of the information we want, like beacons being on and different things like that. So when you're fitting them up in the first instance, you want to grab a bit of that data. And a lot of the mowers are just a very simple wire up as far as ignition source, and that's about it really. And we had to think about those as well. And we've got multiple deck mowers that have got all of the decks obviously triggered and all those sorts of things. So that gives us the ability then to have a look at how efficient that multi-deck mower has actually been, whether they're only using one deck or whether they're using all of them, what parks they're using that particular mower in. And then we've got other mowers obviously that can sometimes be asked to do the same park, and then we can have a look at the time difference in relation to the two mowers and establish which is the best mower to mow which particular park and all those sorts of things. So we're doing a little bit in that area. We haven't got anything integrated at the moment into Formbird, but there is a maintenance structure within the GEOTAB application that we use that emails us when things are due for service and those sorts of things. So I guess the beauty with the GEOTAB devices plugged into the ABD2, it's not just using geo data to work out the kilometres, it's actually downloading the real-time kilometres out of the back of the ECM. And up here where we are, it's quite hilly, and we were finding that other systems that just calculate kilometres over that using geo plotting was quite inaccurate. So that was the other reason why we chose to go with a GEOTAB product. So yeah, there's plenty going on. Sky's the limit really when it comes to, you know, use your imagination. The data's already there. It's just a matter of how you want to go about using it. But as I said before, it's very important to think about the sorts of things you want to be getting off your machinery when you're wiring them up in the first instance. Not that you can't go back and rewire them for whatever else, but you can't have enough data. The other thing is too, you can get very, very lost in the amount of data, and it's some of what I think what Mark's talking to is developing an integration where some of the exception reporting can be done by Formbird. The thing with the data is you can spend hours and hours trying to sift through and trying to find something that's happened or where or whatever else, whereas if you can come up with some rules for some exception reporting, it basically lands in your lap without having to go looking for it. So that's some of the other things to probably give it a bit of a thought about. That's about it, Mark, really, I think. For us, we're a bit hobbled. We've got a very tight workplace surveillance policy here at the moment. So the real-time data that comes out of the GEOTAB, I'm not really supposed to be even looking at any of that. The only time that we go in there and have a look at what a vehicle's been or where it's been, if there's been a complaint. And on 3 occasions now, it's actually protected the driver from accusations rather than put them in the poo. So we've done a bit of that with it as well, but only well after the fact. So we're looking to try and get our policy cleaned up a bit, and I think part of doing that is actually showing the powers to be what the devices are actually able to do for the organisation. The thing that moved us in this direction in the first place was fuel tax credits, as Mark spoke to before. There is companies out there that money associated with mining and whatever else that do a pretty good job of calculating fuel tax credits using the data straight out of the back of GEOTAB. For us, we've thought about it long and hard. Because we're road network maintenance people, like it's a core part of our business, we're actually able to claim some of the usage on the road network. So you trying to establish what ways to determine that a machine's actually being used on site doing its job on the road network and being able to trigger some sort of report so that we can use that for fuel tax credits has been a fairly big part of what we're trying to achieve. So with that, with our light vehicles, for instance, is we've got a beacon switch on all of our light vehicles. So if the vehicle's travelling under a certain speed with the beacons on, it's assumed that it's actually working on a work site. And we're working with a third party to try and have that accepted by the ATO as fuel tax claimable kilometres in a light vehicle. Our heavy vehicles aren't quite as difficult because you're not usually driving a grader across town just for the hell of it. So that's not quite as difficult, and some of the data that comes straight at the ABD2 on some of the machines have actually got reference to them being working anyway. So we're pretty keen to try and capitalise on our FTC as much as we can. So that led us in the direction we are. And the only other thing that's been a bit of interest is we've got up here, it's pretty cold in winter, a lot of places it is. We have a lot of chainsaws in utes and different things, and we notice that our 2-stroke and bar oil goes through the roof in winter, but not so much in summer. Yet our road network vegetation maintenance doesn't change year round, so I'll let you draw your own conclusions there. So we've got, we're looking at Bluetooth beacons now on our chainsaws, and our GEOTAB devices also have a tracker there. So basically, once the chainsaw is removed from the ute, it'll tell us. And once it's returned, it'll tell us, obviously, and locate where that's actually occurring, day, date, and time, and whatever else. So that may curb a little bit of our fuel usage and bar oil usage, plus our wear and tear on chainsaws. Plus, it'll also help with with the vegetation is actually occurring, maintenance on our own road network, it'll show us that. And the only other thing I can think of off the top of my head is we've got quite a lot of bulk tanks on the back of our utes. We don't have a fuel truck. We actually have pods on the back of the utes with diesel on them, which can be an area where you can get some shrinkage pretty quickly. So we've actually got a trigger on the pumps as well. So when the pumps are turned on, they're all electric pumps. That also gives us a geolocation of where that fueling's occurred, which is pretty handy. So yeah, those sorts of things are, they're all available and all able to be done through GEOTAB, and however Formbird leverage that, well, like I say, it's sky's the limit.
So, Brad, with those ones, are you taking an input into the Go9 as just a sensor, just a trigger, just a switch sensor?
Yeah. So our Go9s, there's a couple of different plugins. You can have an analog.
Yeah. Analog input there. Yep.
We've got a digital input on those. So basically, that gives you 4 inputs. That can be triggered either positively or negatively.
Yep.
Initially, I was putting like wristbands on our chainsaws. We were basically looking for an open circuit or a closed circuit to trigger when they were being removed from the ute.
Yep.
They worked fine, but a bit clunky, a fair bit of work wiring those in. We had just a quick connect on the back of our trays. Our trays get changed onto our next cab chassis, so it wasn't such an issue, but you still had to pull a cabling through to the tray every 15,000 Ks. So we're trying to limit the amount of work that goes into changing our live vehicles over. So
yeah. So with the Bluetooth stuff, have you got that going at the moment yet?
No, I'm still waiting on there are just a plug-in that goes into the Go9, the Bluetooth trackers, and then I've got a beacon. So I haven't quite got there yet with that. But
so that'll detect when a device is out of Bluetooth range or something, or it's triggered that it's lost Bluetooth connection.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So as you move it away from the vehicle, it'll say, "Yep, it's left the vehicle," and then when it comes back, it's back in. So you tune the sort of the range so that it's not 500 meters, it's down to a couple of meters, and happy days sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess so. Mark. As I said, I haven't had a chance to work with the Bluetooth stuff. I know the wristband thing with the chainsaws would work because as soon as you wanted to remove it from the toolbox, you had to unplug the chainsaw from the harness.
Yes.
But the thing for us more so is that when people are out perhaps cutting firewood for themselves, they're not taking the council vehicle with them to do it on the weekend. So they're well out of Bluetooth range. So
yes. Yeah.
The main thing we're trying to capture here is the crazy amount of fuel that goes walking during winter for chainsaw use when our vegetation maintenance doesn't change. So,
I'll be interested to see how your battery goes on that Bluetooth device and the vibration. Obviously, it's a pretty harsh environment sticking on a chainsaw.
Yeah, so they've been developed for the use of power tools and things like that as well. So we can track where particular tools have ended up in particular utes and all them sorts of things. So we're hoping that'll help us a bit as well. But that's basically been their primary use, has been tracking small tools.
Well, I think you've triggered a lot of interest in that one there. Looking at the chat line, I think there's a couple of people who want to sign up there, mate.
Yeah. Look, like I say, I can talk for hours upon it. I was a bit disappointed to find the GEOTABs don't really have a five-axis accelerometer in them. They've got a more of a I don't know what the term is that they use inside the device, but it picks up acceleration in different directions, but doesn't do it very, very accurately. We were looking to try and create a heat map, if you like, of road degradation around our shire as well, using 5-axis.
Yep.
Basically, vibrations and hard jolts or corrugations would show up quite easily on a 5-axis, whereas these devices aren't quite so sensitive for that sort of thing. So that was a bit disappointing because we've got 40 plus vehicles that travel our road network all the time. So if we're able to plop that sort of data, would be excellent. But
mate, what do you expect for a $250 device?
Yeah, true. Look, and I don't doubt that down the track the there may be a plug-in developed for that exact thing, so that you
Yeah.
can plug it into the device for those that are interested in doing it.
I suspect also, for high accuracy accelerometer, you're going to need to make sure the orientation is all correct and balanced, everything else as well. Otherwise, it's only taking an average of what's going on, not directional knowledge.
Yep. So is that we've got our bin lifting trucks, our side loaders done. We do our own waste here, so I've got maps where I can bring them up, and it's got a dot for every bin. It's lifted up for the day. I then do a report and send it off to the waste manager, that she can see how many bins the truck's done on any given day, and that's reported over a week. Quite a lot of geofencing going on, so you obviously draw a little bit of a line around whatever of interest, like parks and sewage pump stations and all those sorts of things.
So using that for entry and exit alerting, or what's the function there?
Yeah, so with our mowers, for instance, with the decks being down or up, it'll tell us when the decks are down and up and a number for the end of the day, but that's handy. But if it's geofence, it'll actually tell us within what geofence that's occurred as well. So that we can see that the blades have been engaged in Shirley Park for 7 hours yesterday or whatever else. So whereas it just say that the blades were engaged for 7 hours yesterday, which is handy but not overly handy. The other thing is our front lift truck. As I said, we do our own waste. All of the bins are geofenced, so when they get a request for another industrial bin to be dropped somewhere, I geofence that. Then it reports if it sees a PDO engagement within that square, and it effectively gives the waste manager a list of bins that have been serviced in any given day by name, which is quite helpful. She can make sure that nothing's missed. So, there's plenty of applications that it sort of works to. It's just a matter of working out what you want to be able to achieve with it.
I just had one question from Pat Ahern about the GEOTAB. Does it know when a four-wheel drive has had the 4x4 engaged, date and time? Would that work on a Land Cruiser or something?
No doubt it gathers the data. You'd have to probably go and make a report within GEOTAB itself. So any of the information that's available to it through the ABD2, which is extensive, can be graphed, as I think I haven't got the screen there. Paul did have the graph stuff up there before, So depending on the brand of vehicle, because all of the ABD2 information that's been gathered is GEOTAB's actually had to go in there and determine the language basically of the ABD2 and all those things. So some of your more common stuff, I know all my Toyotas, I'm lucky enough there that they're common enough that GEOTAB have put the work in and have decoded all that data. So it's basically a matter of finding the input that's associated with engaging four-wheel drive. And then there's a report tool within GEOTAB that takes a little bit of getting your head around, that can gather that information and display it however you want, either by asset or by time or whatever else. It's actually built, the reports are built in Excel, and then you then repaste them back into GEOTAB as a template, and then it puts the data in from there. So it's a little bit clunky to get your head around, but once you get there, it's not too bad. So I've built a few custom reports, like the bin reports, for instance, for myself using Excel and pasting it back into GEOTAB. And again, I'm sure that Formbird could easily extract and do the same data and display it on the interface. It's all there to be had.
Yeah, on the ODB2, basically there's a Euro standard of what they have to publish, but a lot of it they don't. So GEOTAB spends a lot of time cross-correlating, because basically, just for those who don't understand ODB2, it's what's called a two-wire system. It's basically you're sending out a message and then a value, and depending on what you are, whether you're the temperature sensor or whatever it is, you just keep pumping out these messages, and each message then correlates, but there's no industry standard. So Toyota will hopefully stick to message number 1, 2, 3 is the oil temperature, but that can change between vehicles because it depends on the engineer and depends on what they want to do with it. So they spend a lot of time doing that. So the availability of the data is very much about what can they sniff for and what they have sniffed for, and then what they then can release. So ultimately it's all there because it's a common system, but the problem is it's a proprietary messaging layer, and that's the whole issue. But they've done a good job. You found generally a fairly good, your vehicles are fairly well covered in terms of the base information.
Look, our light vehicles are exceptional. They're very good.
Right.
I've been quite surprised even with our John Deere tractors, for instance. We've plugged in there and we've immediately got more stuff than I need to know about straight away out of the back of the ABD2 on them. Perhaps because in agriculture they want to know quite a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of guys using it for different things there. But our slasher tractors, even though the ABD2's plugged in, it was difficult to get a PDO trigger out of it that was just a basic switch. It'd like to graph it for us, but to actually plot that then on a map was difficult. So some of the stuff, even though the data's there, to plot when the slash is on and when it's off using the OBD2 data is quite difficult. And it's been a lot easier just to simply put an IOX 4-wire trigger on it. And every time the slash is pulled on, it basically draws a green line when the slash is on and it's a black line when it's not. So, you can look at all my mowers, the same thing. We can see where they're doing circle work or where they're driving it across town. So one of the interesting things with the mowers where the guys were just doing bits and pieces everywhere, and these little green strips of lines, and then this huge big drive, it's almost like they were driving in town to have a look. So that helped the garden and open spaces manager have a yarn to his guys about that. Like, it made little sense to do 5 minutes of mowing and then drive for 10 minutes and do another 5 minutes of mowing the other side of town. And it was as easy as just pulling up that map, and it just showed the green lines where they were mowing and the black lines where they weren't. We've erred a lot to doing our own source triggering with them 4 wires, basically, because they're a lot easier to plot. Create a rule for and plot on the map. So you're then, where are you tapping? Are you putting your own read switches and stuff in, or are you actually then tapping off the switches that are there or voltages that are coming out of a switch? So it depends on my background's auto electrical, so I'm lucky there. But some of the stuff being digital, it needs to see basically a clean on and off.
Yes.
So even if you've got a solenoid being triggered by something like on a lawnmower, for instance, where it's pulling in a hydraulic solenoid to engage the blades, the oscillation it gets it when that solenoid closes can sometimes confuse the actual digital pickup.
Yep.
So in those instances, I've got to relay them so that there's a little bit more work in them, so it just cleans up that output a little bit. I haven't looked at putting suppression and stuff on it. That could probably also do the job, but there's been a little bit of learning along the way.
Yep.
With some of that stuff. I know in sweepers and different things, there's a lot going on in this space with sweepers. We don't have any of our own, but you can have brooms and water and all that sort of stuff triggered, and even create rules where it ignores a false trigger because there's no way in the world that a sweeper might be sweeping at 80 kilometres an hour and all those sorts of things. So you create all these rule sets so some of the false triggering is eliminated as well.
Well, thank you, Brad.
Yes, our guest presenter, Brad. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Impromptu, I might add.
Very impromptu.
So Bluetooth chainsaws seem to be the flavour of the day.
One of the hot topics.
Yeah.
Yes.
Has anyone else got any questions or contributions?
Come on, Marie.
All right. Well, are we right to wrap it up, Mark?
I think so. And I think that, if anyone's got, further thoughts, we'll keep sort of incrementing it and definitely working with Brad on, if you're happy to share all this stuff, Brad, we'd love to perhaps become a bit of a conduit there and pick your brain on it. And if that's of interest in the group, where we can sort of, I suppose, put some time and effort in supporting that for the broader audience, if that's appropriate. Do I get a nod from at least Marie? Maybe. Yeah, good.
It's an exciting part of fleet management at the moment, and it's you know, the technology is only getting better and better as it goes as well.
Yes.
So unique.
And that's kind of where we want the guidance of where the big bucks are, because like you said, you can do 1,000 things, but only 3 of them might be actually of any real value.
Yeah, look, and again, the FTC for me was the business case I had to make to the organisation to even get this across the board in the first place. So we don't do FTC very well. With data, we can claim at a higher rate and all the rest of it. Plus, we can capitalise on what we are claiming. And there has been a ruling by the ATO that you can backwards claim up to 4 years, which
Yes.
pricked everybody's ears. And I crunched some very basic numbers and put a business case to the organisation, and they couldn't get them in quick enough. So
has it now, based on those claims, paid for itself? Has it resolved the?
Not yet. It's been a bit of a saga. It's we've like most places have got really dark areas for GSM network coverage, and that leads into the conversation as we had earlier about the offline do our daily plant inspections. But I've had to put a few of these on satellite. So our big fuel burners that graders and whatsoever that can work out of GSM range for up to 3 months.
Right.
They just disappear. I'm waiting on that, on those to come back before I do my initial month of data capture for the FTC claim. The thing that I'm holding off on is making sure that I've got absolutely every single tiny piece of data that I can for that month, so that it capitalises on my FTC claim. So
yeah,
that's why it's drug on about 12 months, but we focus on certain elements and certain things. It might be mowers, one instance, or whatever else, and they're not big diesel burners, but we're wanting to trying to capitalise on absolutely everything we can. That's why we're just holding off, because we get one chance to backwards claim, and we want to make sure we get the most that we can.
Yeah. Oh, Dion, have you got any questions? Being someone who's seriously looking at all this stuff. Oh.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, not at this point. It's good to actually see, a little bit more in depth on how it's going to work. But yeah, early stages for us. But yeah, not at this point. Thanks. Right.
Good. Okay, I think, Paul, we wrap it up. I think.
Yeah.
And thanks again, Brad. That was totally unprompted, and but incredibly valuable. We should have called it the Brad session.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody in 2 months. I'll get the video up probably early next week or tomorrow. And in 2 months, it'll be Thursday, the 13th of October. And I'll send an email out next week with the video attached, and with the invite for 11 p.m. for Thursday, the 13th of October. So until then, we'll see you all later. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.